Have you ever imagined what it would be like to discover that the person you love most in the world is capable of the worst betrayals? I am Abigail Thornfield. I am 52 years old, and this is the story of how I won $280 million in the Mega Millions, and paradoxically lost much more than I ever imagined it was possible to lose. This is not a story about how money corrupts. It's about how it reveals who people really are underneath the masks they wear every day. Before I begin the story, please subscribe to the channel and comment below. What would you do if you won the lottery? October 27, 2023. It was an ordinary Tuesday in Millbrook Springs, a small town in the interior of Oregon where everyone knows each other and where secrets are like seeds. Eventually, they all germinate. I had worked for 28 years as a cleaning supervisor at the regional hospital, waking up every day at 4:30 in the morning to arrive before the first shift. My hands were always rough from disinfectant. My knees ached from being on them so long cleaning floors, but I never complained. I was proud of my work and the life I managed to build for my son. Tristan was my world. At 29 years old, he was everything most precious to me. After his father, Marcus, abandoned us when Tristan was only 7 years old, I promised myself I would be both father and mother to that boy. Marcus simply disappeared one morning, leaving only a note saying he wasn't ready to be a father and needed to find himself. Tristan cried for months, asking when Daddy would come back. I lied, saying he would return soon, until one day I stopped lying and started telling the truth. Sometimes people leave and it's not our fault. I raised Tristan alone, working 2 jobs at the hospital in the morning and cleaning offices at night. I saved every penny so he could go to university. He graduated in business administration from Oregon State University, and I was so proud I cried throughout the entire graduation ceremony. He was the first person in our family to have a university degree. After graduation, Tristan got a job at a consulting company in Portland, but continued living with me in Millbrook Springs. He said he wanted to stay close to take care of me, that I had sacrificed too much for him, and now it was his turn to give back. I protested, saying he needed to live his own life. But secretly, I loved having my son nearby. That Tuesday in October, I had just finished cleaning the last room on the 3rd floor when my friend Dolores, who worked at reception, came running toward me with wide eyes. "Abigail, did you see the Mega Millions numbers from last night?" I laughed, wiping the sweat from my forehead with my arm. "Dolores, you know I've only played the same numbers for 15 years and never won even $10. But did you play yesterday?" "I play every Friday religiously." "Why?" Dolores pulled her phone from her pocket, her hands trembling. The numbers were 7, 14, 21, 35, 52. And the Mega Ball 17. My heart stopped for an instant. Those were my numbers. 7, the day Tristan was born. 14, my birthday. 21, the age I was when he was born. 35, the age Marcus was when he left us. 52, my current age. And 17, our house number on Elm Street. "Dolores, are you sure about those numbers?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Absolutely. Abigail, if you played those numbers, ... double quotes." She couldn't finish the sentence. My legs went weak. I leaned against the corridor wall, feeling the world spin around me. I need to check my ticket. I ran to the locker room like crazy, searching through my purse until I found my wallet. There it was, my Mega Millions ticket, crumpled and with folded corners. My hands were shaking so much I could barely read the numbers. But they were there. All of them, exactly in the sequence Dolores had read. $280 million. I had won $280 million. I fell onto the wooden bench in the locker room and began to cry. They weren't tears of joy. They were tears of pure shock, of disbelief, of terror. How could this be happening to me? Me, Abigail Thornfield, who never had anything beyond what was necessary to survive. Dolores found me there, sobbing alone, with the ticket clutched in my hand. "Dear, it's true, isn't it?" I could only nod my head. "My God, Abigail." "Dear God in heaven, I spent the rest of that day in a state of shock. I didn't tell anyone except Dolores, who swore to keep the secret until I decided what to do. I drove home that afternoon as if I were in a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. I still couldn't tell the difference. When I got home, Tristan was in the kitchen preparing dinner. He did this sometimes when he got home early from work. He was making my favorite dish, chicken stew with potatoes, my mother's recipe. "Hi, Mom. How was your day?" He greeted me with that smile that always melted my heart. I looked at my son, tall, with brown hair like mine, with the green eyes he inherited from Marcus, and felt a wave of love so intense it almost knocked me down. He was everything to me. Absolutely everything. It was different, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Different how? I took a deep breath. I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. "Tristan, sit down. I need to tell you something." He turned off the stove and sat at the kitchen table, looking at me with curiosity. "Mom, you're pale. Did something happen?" I pulled the ticket from my wallet and placed it on the table between us. "I won the lottery." Tristan looked at the ticket, then at me, then back at the ticket. "How much?" $280 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Tristan stared at me as if I had spoken in a foreign language. Then slowly he picked up the ticket and examined the numbers. "Mom, ... double quotes." His voice came out hoarse. "Mom, this is real. It's real, son. I checked 10 times. Suddenly, he got up from the chair and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Mom, we won. We really won." He was crying and laughing at the same time. "You'll never have to work at that hospital again. Never have to worry about money again. We did it, Mom. We did it." In that moment, holding my son in my arms, I felt the money really was a blessing. Finally, I could give Tristan everything he deserved. I could travel, see the world, maybe even find someone special to share this new life with. The future seemed bright and full of infinite possibilities. If I had known what was coming, I would have burned that ticket right there. The next day, we went together to Portland to claim the prize. Tristan had taken the day off to accompany me. And during the entire 2-hour drive, he didn't stop talking about the plans he had for us. He wanted me to buy a big house, maybe in Lake Oswego, one of the city's most upscale areas. He talked about trips to Europe, about how I could finally rest and enjoy life. "Mom, you've worked so hard for so long," he said. "Driving my old Honda Civic on I-5, you deserve all this and much more." Asterisk, I smiled and nodded. But inside I felt a strange uneasiness. There was something about the tone of Tristan's voice, the way he talked about us and our plans, that made me uncomfortable. It was as if he already considered the money his at the lottery headquarters. We were received by a team of lawyers and financial consultants. They explained about taxes, about payment options, about the importance of maintaining discretion. I chose to receive the full amount all at once, even knowing I would lose a significant part in taxes. Still, after all deductions, $168 million remained. $168 million. A sum so absurd that my brain simply couldn't process it. During the process, Tristan stayed by my side the whole time, asking questions about investments, about trusts, about ways to protect assets. He seemed to understand much more about these things than I did, and I felt grateful to have such an intelligent son to help me navigate this new and frightening world. You need to be very careful about who will know this. "Information," warned Margaret Silverspoon, the principal financial consultant. "Unfortunately, this type of sudden wealth attracts all kinds of people with questionable intentions." "We won't tell anyone," Tristan answered before I could speak. "At least, not for now. We need to get organized first." I agreed. It was the most sensible thing to do. On the way home, we stopped at a fancy restaurant in Portland to celebrate. It was the first time in my life I had entered a place where the waiters wore ties and the dishes cost more than $30. Tristan ordered a bottle of champagne that cost $200, Mom. "Now we can afford it," he said, raising his glass for a toast. To new times, I repeated. But there was something about the way he said "we can" that bothered me again during dinner. Tristan began talking about his plans in more detail. He wanted to quit his job and open his own business. He had an idea for a technology company, something related to mobile applications. He would need startup capital of about $2 million. It's an investment in our future, Mom. With my education and our new financial situation, we can build something really big. I listened in silence, chewing my grilled salmon that was delicious, but I could barely taste. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what. Of course, son. If that's what you want, let's talk about it. Tristan's eyes gleamed in a way I had never seen before. Thank you, Mom. You won't regret it. We're going to be truly rich, not just by luck. We're going to be truly rich. That phrase echoed in my head during the entire drive home that night. Lying in my usual bed, in my usual room, in my usual house, I stared at the ceiling, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 2 days. In 48 hours, my life had turned completely upside down. I had enough money to buy anything I wanted, to go anywhere I desired, to never worry about bills or the future again. So why did I feel so anxious? In the next room, I could hear Tristan talking on the phone. He spoke quietly, but occasionally his voice would rise and I could catch some words. ... finally happened ... it's single quotes as going to be easy. ... she trusts me completely ... double quotes, who would he be calling at that hour of the night? And why was he speaking so quietly? I got up silently and approached the wall that separated our rooms. The old wood of the house allowed some sounds to leak from one room to another ... double quotes ... No, it won't be a problem, he was saying. She'll do what I tell her. She always has. My blood ran cold ... double quotes ... I just need a little more time to convince her about some things. But the plan will work, you can be sure. What plan? Convince me about what? ... when everything is in my name. Then we can ... double quotes. His voice got lower and I lost the rest of the sentence. I went back to bed in shock. Had I heard correctly? Was my own son plotting something against me? No, it was impossible. Tristan loved me. We had always been a team, always supported each other. I was being paranoid, letting my mind invent conspiracy theories where they didn't exist. But then I remembered the way he had talked at the restaurant, always using we and our. I remembered how he had answered for me at the meeting with the financial consultants. I remembered the strange light in his eyes when he talked about quitting his job. Maybe Margaret Silverspoon had been right. Maybe sudden wealth really did attract people with questionable intentions, even if that person was my own son. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Tristan became even more attentive to me. He made breakfast, washed dishes, even started grocery shopping. But now I saw all of this with different eyes. Each gentle gesture seemed calculated, each smile forced. On Thursday, he came home from work with a folder full of papers. Mom, I brought some documents for you to look at. They're about investments, about how to better organize our money. Our money. There was that word again, Tristan. It's my money. I won the lottery, not both of us. He stopped flipping through the papers and looked at me with an expression I had never seen. Before, a mix of irritation and something that seemed contempt. Of course, Mom. Sorry. It's just, well, we're a family, aren't we? We've always shared everything. We share responsibilities and love, son. That doesn't mean my fortune is automatically yours. For an instant, Tristan's mask slipped completely. His eyes narrowed, and I saw something cold and calculating shining in them. But quickly he recovered his smile. You're right, of course. I'm just trying to help. You don't have experience with this type of amount. And you do. I studied business administration. Mom, I understand finances. I took the papers he had brought. They weren't just about investments. They were asset transfer documents. Power of attorney, contracts establishing Tristan as my official financial consultant with power to make decisions in my name. At the end of the folder, there was a document that almost made me faint. A proposal to transfer 80% of my winnings to a joint account, with Tristan as co-holder. Tristan, what is this? My hands were shaking holding the papers. They're just legal precautions, Mom. To protect you. To protect us? If something happens to you, I need to have access to the funds to take care of everything. If something happens to me, Tristan, I'm 52 years old and in perfect health. What do you think is going to happen to me? Nothing, I hope. But accidents happen. Illnesses appear out of nowhere. It's better to be prepared. The coldness in his voice chilled me. It was as if he were talking about the weather, not about my possible death. I won't sign any of this, Tristan. This time he couldn't hide his anger. Why don't you trust me? I trust you as my son. That doesn't mean I'm going to hand over my money for you to manage. He threw the rest of the papers on the table forcefully. Incredible. 29 years taking care of you, supporting you. Staying here in this shitty little town instead of going to live my life. And at the first opportunity, you act like I'm a stranger trying to rob you, Tristan. What's gotten into you? I never asked you to stay here. I always encouraged you to follow your dreams. My dreams. He laughed, but there was nothing funny about that sound. My dreams died when I realized I was trapped with a mother who never achieved anything in life except cleaning other people's floors. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. In our entire life together, Tristan had never spoken to me that way. He had never shown any shame about my profession or our financial situation. You can't be serious. I'm more serious than ever. He got up from the chair and began pacing back and forth in the kitchen. Do you have any idea what it was like for me at school? At university. Having to lie about what my mother did for a living? Making up excuses not to bring friends home because I was ashamed of this old, decaying house. Each word was like a stab. Tristan, why didn't you ever tell me this? If you felt this way, what would be the point? You never had ambition. Never wanted more from life. You were content to be a cleaning lady forever. I was content to give you a better life. Everything I did was for you. And now it's my turn to have the life I always deserved. We won $280 million, Mom. $280 million. And you want me to keep pretending I'm grateful for crumbs? Finally, I was seeing my son as he really was. Not the sweet, caring boy I had raised, but a bitter, greedy man who had always felt superior to me. The realization was devastating. Get out of my house, I whispered. What? I said, get out of my house now. Tristan stopped pacing and stared at me. Mom, you can't be serious. Where am I going to stay? You're an adult man with a job and money. You can stay wherever you want, but it won't be here. Mom, let's talk. I got carried away, said things I didn't mean to say. No, Tristan. You said exactly what you meant to say. These are probably things you've been thinking for years, but never had the courage to say. He tried to approach me. But I stepped back. Please, Mom. We're everything to each other. Don't let money destroy our family. I'm not the one letting money destroy our family. You were already destroyed inside for a long time. I just didn't want to see it. That night, after Tristan left slamming the door, sat alone in the kitchen and cried like I hadn't cried in years. I cried for the loss of the son I thought I had. I cried for the shattered illusions. I cried for discovering that the only two people I had loved most in life, Marcus and Tristan, saw me as a burden, but I also cried with relief. Finally, I was seeing the truth, no matter how painful it was. On Friday morning, I called Margaret Silverspoon. Mrs. Thornfield, how can I help you? I need to take some urgent security measures. I think someone might be trying to access my money fraudulently. Someone close to you? My son? There was silence on the other end of the line. Margaret had seen this before, family members trying to take advantage of lottery winners. I'll arrange everything immediately. Additional passwords, two-step verification, preventive blocks. No one but you will have access to any penny. Thank you. Mrs. Thornfield, may I give you some advice? Money doesn't change people. It just reveals who they always were. That afternoon, returning from the supermarket, I found Tristan waiting for me on the porch. His eyes were red and he looked like he hadn't slept. Mom, can I come in? I need to talk to you. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He sat on the living room sofa where we used to watch television together on weekends. I spent the whole night thinking about what I said yesterday. You're right. I behaved like a greedy idiot. I sat in the armchair across from him, keeping my distance. Continue. The truth is that ... I always felt inferior because of our situation. Not because of your fault, but because of my own insecurity. And when you won the lottery, suddenly I saw an opportunity to be someone important, to have the respect I always wanted. His words sounded sincere, but something still wasn't right. Tristan, even if that's true, the things you said ... were cruel and unfair. Mom, you're the hardest working and most dedicated person I know. You gave me a university education working 2 jobs. I never should have spoken that way about your work. I wanted to believe him. I desperately wanted to believe that my son had just had a moment of weakness. So what do you propose? That I go away for a while. Maybe disappear for a few months to get my head together. You can enjoy adapting to your new life. Okay. And I can work on my personal issues. And what about the documents you brought yesterday? Forget all that. It was my stupidity. Your money is yours. When I come back, if you want to help me with something, it will be your choice. I almost believed him. Almost, but then my gaze fixed on his left hand. He was wearing a watch I had never seen before, a gold Rolex that must have cost at least $20,000, Tristan. What watch is that? He looked at his wrist and went pale. It's borrowed. From a friend at work. What friend lends a $20,000 Rolex? Mom, it's not important. ... double quotes. I got up from the armchair. Tristan, where did you get money to buy that watch? I didn't buy it. I already told you it's borrowed. Show me the receipt then. Or the loan receipt. He got up too nervous. Why are you asking these questions? Don't you trust me anymore? Answer the question. Where did that watch come from? Tristan was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, that cold smile I was learning to recognize appeared on his face. You want to know the truth, Mom? The truth is, you're much more naive than I thought. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? This watch I bought on Monday, one day after we claimed the prize. I bought it with a pre-approved credit card that I got using your name and your new financial status. You ... You forged my signature. Forge is too strong a word. Let's say I took advantage of a business opportunity. I felt as if the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. What other opportunities did you take advantage of? Well, since you want to know, I bought a new car, a BMW. It's parked at my girlfriend's house. Your girlfriend. What girlfriend? You never told me about any girlfriend. Rayleigh Buchanan. You two met a few times, but you probably don't remember. She works at the real estate agency downtown. Rayleigh Buchanan. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't associate it with a face. And what else, Tristan? What other lies do you have to tell me? They're not lies, Mom. They're investments in our future. Stop saying, oh, you are. I screamed so loudly my throat hurt. There is no R and no's of our... The money is mine. Technically, the money is yours, he said with frightening calm. But I've already spent about $200,000 in your name, and I intend to spend much more. $200,000 in less than a week. How? How did you get access to my money? You signed some papers on Monday without reading them properly. Temporary power of attorney. I said they were to protect you, remember? I remembered. In the confusion and shock of that day, I had signed several documents without paying much attention. I trusted Tristan to take care of the details. You deceived me. I took advantage of your trust too. Secure our future. Our future ends now, Tristan. I'm going to cancel all power of attorney and take legal action against you. It's going to be hard to prove. I did anything illegal, Mom? You gave me written permission. And I'm your son. Any judge will understand. I was trying to help you manage such a large amount. The coldness and calculation in his voice made me realize this hadn't been an impulsive decision. Tristan had planned everything from day one, maybe even before I won the lottery. How long have you been planning this, Tristan? Planning what? To rob me. He laughed. It's not robbery when it's family. Mom, it's survival. Those words echoed in the room like a gunshot. Survival, as if I had been a threat to his survival all these years. Instead of the person who sacrificed everything to ensure he had a better life. Survival from what, Tristan? I gave you everything. You gave me mediocrity, Mom. You gave me a small life in a small town with small dreams. Now I finally have the chance to be someone. In that moment, everything became clear. Tristan wasn't having a temporary moral crisis. He wasn't being influenced by momentary greed. This was who he really was. He always had been. And I had been too blind, or perhaps too loving. Too. Get out of my house, I said with a firmness in my voice I didn't know I possessed. Now, I can't do that, Mom. What do you mean you can't? Because I need you to sign some more documents. And because Rayleigh is coming here shortly to get to know you better, I'm not signing anything else. And I don't want to meet your girlfriend. Well, then maybe it's time for you to know the whole truth. Tristan pulled his phone from his pocket and opened an app. Riley isn't just my girlfriend, Mom. She's my business partner. He showed me the screen. There were photos of us, photos of me and him taken during the last few days. At the hospital, in the lottery parking lot, at the restaurant where we celebrated. Someone had been following us and photographing us. Who took these photos? Rayleigh, she's very talented with cameras. Why? Documentation. In case we need to prove you were in perfect mental state when you signed the documents giving me power of attorney. My blood ran cold. Mental state? Well, a 52-year-old lady who suddenly wins a fortune. Sometimes that can cause stress, confusion, even some temporary psychological problems. Any psychiatrist would say it's perfectly natural. Finally, I understood the complete plan. They weren't just trying to steal my money. They were preparing the groundwork to question my mental capacity if I tried to stop them. You planned all. This Rayleigh is very intelligent. It was her idea to document everything from the beginning. How long have you two been together? 3 years. 3 years. For 3 years. Tristan had maintained a secret relationship while pretending to be the devoted son who lived only to take care of his mother. Why did you hide this from me? Because Rayleigh thought it would be better to keep you uninformed until the right moment. And when would be the right moment? When you died, to be honest. But the lottery changed our timeline. The coldness with which he spoke about my death made me tremble. It was as if he were discussing the dinner menu. You were waiting for me to die? Everyone dies eventually, Mom. And when that happened, I would inherit this house and whatever money you had managed to save. Rayleigh calculated that with your age and lifestyle, you would probably live until your 70s. Enough time for her and me to establish ourselves in life. But now that I have 200 million, now we don't need to wait anymore. In that moment, I heard the sound of a car arriving in the driveway. Through the living room window, saw a red-haired woman getting out of a black BMW, the car Tristan had bought with my money. Rayleigh has arrived, he said, as if announcing the arrival of a dinner guest. The front door opened without anyone knocking. The woman entered as if the house were hers, carrying a leather briefcase and displaying a perfectly calculated smile. Rayleigh Buchanan was about 30 years old, with perfectly arranged red hair, expensive clothes, and the coldest eyes I had ever seen in my life. She was beautiful the way a snake is beautiful, hypnotizing and deadly dangerous. You must be Abigail, she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Finally, we meet properly. I didn't shake her hand. Have we met before? A few times. At the bank, at the pharmacy, at the supermarket. I always greeted you, but you never paid much attention. Now I remembered. The nice red-haired woman who always made small comments about the weather or about prices at the supermarket. She had been watching me for months, maybe years. You were spying on me. I was collecting information, she corrected, sitting on my sofa as if she owned the house. It's important to know well the people we're going to do business with. What business? I'm not going to do any business with you. Rayleigh opened the briefcase and took out a stack of documents. Well, that's going to be a problem, Abigail. Because you already have. What are you talking about? Tristan showed me the papers you signed on Monday. Technically, he already has legal power to make most financial decisions in your name. I'm going to cancel all power of attorney. That's going to be difficult. Tristan said, sitting next to Rayleigh. Especially considering your current mental state. My mental state is perfectly normal. A 52-year-old woman who lives alone, works as a cleaning lady, never had serious relationships after her ex-husband, and suddenly wins $200 million. Rayleigh shook her head with false concern. Any psychiatrist would say that's a recipe for emotional instability. We've documented some concerning behaviors, Tristan added. Paranoia, excessive distrust, unfounded accusations against family members, ... double quotes, unfounded accusations. You literally just admitted you're trying to steal my money. See? Rayleigh turned to Tristan. Delusions of persecution. Very concerning. Finally, I understood the diabolic genius of their plan. Each normal reaction of mine to discovering I was being manipulated would be interpreted as evidence of mental instability. The more I protested, the more crazy I would seem. You won't succeed, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Actually, we already have, Rayleigh replied, taking more papers from the briefcase. These are statements from the accounts Tristan opened using your power of attorney. As you can see, in the last 5 days, transfers totaling $4,200,000 have been made. $4,200,000. The number hit me like a punch. Impossible. I had only authorized $200,000. But you also signed a power of attorney giving Tristan power to take all necessary measures to protect and invest your assets. Very comprehensive. I vaguely remembered signing that document. In the confusion of that day, with all the lawyers talking at the same time, I had trusted Tristan to explain what each paper meant. Where did the money go? Various investments, Tristan replied. Real estate, stocks, some promising businesses. What real estate? Rayleigh smiled. A beautiful house in Lake Oswego. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, pool, Lakeview. It's in my name, of course, for tax purposes. And the stocks. Diversified portfolio. Also in my name for legal reasons. And the promising businesses. A consulting company I just opened. Guess who's the CEO? Each answer was like a stab. They had used my money to buy assets I could never touch, creating a legal scheme almost impossible to reverse. Do you think you're going to get away with this? We already have, Tristan said. The money has already been transferred. The documents have already been signed. Everything was done with your legal authorization. Even if you try to reverse something, it will take years in court. And during those years, Rayleigh added, we'll continue transferring more money for necessary investments. In the end, you'll be left with a small amount for your basic needs and we'll manage the rest. For the rest of my life, well, Tristan shrugged. Or until you no longer need to worry about money. The implicit threat made me get up from the armchair. Get out of my house now. This is still your house, Mom. For now? What do you mean, for now? Rayleigh flipped through some papers. Well, one of the transfers Tristan authorized was the full payment of this house, which technically means you no longer owe anything to the bank. For a moment, I felt relief. At least my house was paid off. But it also means, she continued, that the deed is now in the name of our investment company. For tax protection, of course, my house. They had taken my house, too. You are monsters, I whispered. We're entrepreneurs, Rayleigh corrected. And you're a lucky woman who will be very well cared for the rest of her life. In that moment, something in me broke. It wasn't sadness or anger. It was an absolute and cold clarity. I finally understood who these people in my living room were. They weren't my son and his girlfriend. They were strangers who had spent years planning to destroy my life. Get out. I said with a voice I barely recognized as my own. Mom, ... get out. I screamed so loudly my voice echoed off the walls. Get out of my house now. Tristan and Rayleigh looked at each other. Then she sighed and began putting away the papers. We'll give you time to process all this, Abigail. But tomorrow we're coming back to finalize some details. If you come back here, I'll call the police and say what?" Tristan asked. "That your son is trying to help you manage the money you legally authorized him to manage." They got up and walked toward the door. On the threshold, Tristan turned to look at me one last time. "Mom, I want you to know I have nothing personal against you. It's just business." After they left, I was alone in the living room that suddenly didn't seem like mine anymore. I sat on the sofa where Tristan used to watch movies with me on Sunday afternoons and cried until I had no more tears. But then, slowly, anger began to replace sadness. They thought they had one. They thought I was just a naive cleaning lady who had no resources to fight against them. They were wrong the next morning. I called Margaret Silverspoon before 7 o'clock. "Mrs. Thornfield, is everything all right?" "Margaret, I need your help urgently. And I need the best lawyers money can buy." 3 weeks later, Tristan and Rayleigh were arrested for fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy. The investigation revealed they had done the same thing to at least 2 other elderly people in town, although on much smaller scales. I recovered 80% of the stolen money. The rest had been spent irreversibly. But I still had over $150 million left. Tristan was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Rayleigh got 15 for being considered the leader of the operation. During the trial, they tried to claim I suffered from dementia. But medical exams proved my mental capacity was perfect. On the day the sentence was announced, Tristan looked at me from the defendant's bench and whispered, "I love you, Mom." I didn't respond, because I finally understood that the Tristan I loved had never really existed. Today. 2 years later, I live in a beautiful house in Portland. I donated $10 million to the hospital where I worked to improve working conditions for cleaning staff. I created a foundation to help single mothers send their children to university. And yes, I finally met someone special, a gentleman named Robert, who loves me exactly as I am. The money didn't corrupt me. It freed me. It freed me from illusions, from false people, and, mainly, from the need to seek validation in toxic relationships. Sometimes I still think about Tristan. I wonder if someday he'll understand what he lost. I'm not talking about the money. I'm talking about the unconditional love of a mother who would have done anything for him. But then I remember Margaret's words. Money doesn't change people. It just reveals who they always were. And sometimes, the greatest blessing we can receive is discovering the truth, no matter how painful it may be. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment, what would you do if you won the lottery? And from which city and country are you watching?